countries in the world. They were in the top three. They were actually one time the wealthiest, but made two others wealthy. And now they are the poorest nation on the planet.
Jamaica.
80.
There you go.
Yeah,
Say it again.
80.
A on it.
Say it again. You get an A. Say it again. Haiti was the first country to abolish slavery. And when did they do it?
I didn't hear it.
When did they do it? How soon after becoming a nation officially did they abolish slavery? No, I said how soon after they were established as a country did they abolish it as an independent nation? On the day they got their independence, the first thing they did was abolish slavery.
They didn't wait.
They didn't waste any time. See, listen to this fact. Global protests in support of Black Lives Matter have systematically exposed the legacies of slavery and colonialism today. This is an article from the Washington Post. This has put many on the defensive. White people are quick to tout stories of abolition, emphasizing the path bravely forged by imperial powers like Britain and France. They diminish the realities and consequences of slavery and colonialism by demanding gratitude for ending the same violent systems they had previously implemented. They claim that they're the ones that cleaned it up, but they're the ones that actually started. They weren't the ones that started cleaning it up. And here's the rest of the story. These narratives are historically inaccurate. Y'all heard the story about history is controlled by the people in power because they're the ones who write the narrative. They're the ones who write the narrative, so they control what's written in history. Well, the narratives are historically inaccurate. Neither the French nor the British were the first to abolish slavery. That honor instead goes to Haiti, the first nation to permanently ban slavery and the slave trade from the first day of its existence. In other words, that foolishness is over as of today. Now, the bold act of the Haitians to overthrow slavery and colonialism reverberated around the world, forcing slave-holding nations like Britain and France, who claimed they were the ones that abolished it, to can't come face to face with the contradictions of their own enlightenment. Many would now like to forget this record. Now, here's what happened. In 1697, Haiti was a French colony with the name Saint Dominique. By the second half of the 18th century, it was the most, now listen to this, it was the most wealth-producing colony in the world. Now, does this seem to follow a pattern? What was the next greatest wealth-producing area that the Europeans explored? I'll give you a hint. Mandela became the president. South Africa. And they became the most wealth-producing nation because they were exporting what? Diamonds, gold, oil. They were pilfering the South African nation and using the native residents as slave labor. Now, listen to this sad story. It was the most wealth-producing colony in the world, exporting sugar, coffee, and indigo to France. Who knows what indigo is? It's a color, but so it's a plant that produces the ink. That everybody use for what? For writing. was plenteous in Haiti.
Indigo.
That's where they got it from. Indigo. Is any of that interesting to y'all?
From indigo. Indigo.
Indigo, yeah. And now, let me tell you what it was. It's a tropical plant of the pea family, and it was formerly widely cultivated as a source of dark blue dye. It was obtained from the indigo plant. It's the color between blue and violet in the color spectrum. Indigo is a very pretty color. As a matter of fact, one of the prettiest things to see is a body of water in the color of indigo. That is the prettiest thing you want to see.
That kind of purple like.
It's between purple and blue.
And I got a person name up with indigo.
Indigo, yeah. It's in the color spectrum, and it lands right there in between blue and purple. Real pretty color, and it's rich. Matter of fact, and if you use it a lot of times and make it a transparent color, the stuff that you can see behind it, or that it really makes it stand out. It's real bold. It's like nice bold color, but it came from Haiti. Enslaved men, women, and children produced this wealth. Now, how do you produce all this wealth, but everybody getting rich with you? See, this is the part that really, kind of blows all of their claims about how great they were, how godly they were, and how much, they loved God and worshiped God and honored God, but they were exploiting all these other people's natural resources and valuable stuff, and the people who are producing it are the poorest people on the planet.
Right.
At one time, before they took over their country, South Africans were what? Just like Haiti, po-pos. What happened when they flipped the script and all those white folks had to start running for their lives? Who rich now in South Africa? The South Africans. The real South Africans. Now, what if the Indians decided it's time for them to cash in their check? That IOU. And as much as they keep telling us, and there's next Sunday, I'm going to tell y'all about the rabbis who are going around now telling folks that the real original Jews are the black people in America.
Oh yeah, I heard.
Yeah.
Rabbis are teaching this, Jewish rabbis. And they got proof. They've always had it. They just never told us. So you got my goods.
Yeah.
So since you didn't just come, he's like, okay, I discovered Bishop's car and I took off with it. He got a right to come and find me and what? Get his car back. Because I didn't discover anything. I did what?
Stole it.
I did what?
Stole it.
I stole it. So did they discover America? What did they do? They stole it. Now, enslaved men, women, and children produced this wealth under an incredibly violent system of slavery. Now listen to this part. It was regulated and legitimated under Louis XIV's Code Noir. The death rate among the enslaved was so high that the French constantly imported new captives to work the plantations. Does it sound like something else? Why they have to keep importing so many slaves here? So the first groups they were bringing in, they was hard on them. They was killing them. They were killing more than half of them on the trip across the Atlantic. And then those that got here, but barely half of them survived after getting it. They didn't get sick and die. They worked them to death, so they kept what? Bringing more in. More young. At any one time, about 2/3 of the enslaved population of Haiti had been born in.
Sweet.
No.
It ain't.
What country were they born in?
Okay.
Africa. They were imported. So they couldn't have been born in Haiti. If 2/3 of them, if they were being imported constantly, 2/3 of them, they couldn't have been born there, they were being imported in. They were from Africa.
From the continent of that.
The continent of Africa. And most of them came from Central and Western Africa, that region I showed you called Negro Land, which is now modern day Angola, the Congo, Libya, Liberia, Ethiopia, all that region, all that area, that Central and Western part, Gold Coast, the Slave Coast, the Sand Coast. That's where they come from. Matter of fact, they would take sometimes 2 months to march them down to the coast to get on the ship. And they would have doctors there examining them to determine if they were healthy enough to make the journey, because they knew they were going to have them confined in the hull of the ship, only going to feed them once every 24 hours, and they couldn't come up, and they didn't have bathroom facilities, and couldn't wash, and have no hygiene like the crew members. They kept them down under there, and when they would die, they would leave them down there till they landed, because if they went down there, they would either get sick or die just from the stench. So they couldn't even get the dead bodies out. But we had to survive smelling them dead bodies all the way on the journey. We had to be tough. And y'all talk about tough times now.
I thought they threw the dead ones over.
No, when they first tried to do that, it would actually harm the shipmates, and so they stopped doing it. They wait till they get to port, and they get the ones alive off when they clean the ship, because they would sail up first to a European port, then they would, clean the ship, they get the dead ones out, throw them overboard, and then they keep on around. And when they were dumping the bodies, though, and this is why a lot of people surmise the fact that the sharks followed the route, because when they were throwing the dead bodies off, those that did, that's the same route that the hurricanes take every year. Isn't that interesting? So that sounds like payback to me.
Yeah, that was a storm out.
That sounds like payback to me, Bishop.
Anybody?
What they call it? Karma? What goes around, come around? Or the Bible says, what you sow, you reap. In 1791, enslaved people on the northern sugar plains of St. Dominique rose up in a coordinated rebellion to destroy French slavery. This started the 13-year event that has come to be known as the Haitian Revolution. In 1793, now you find out the year it happened, David, the rebels freed themselves by forcing the colonial commissioners to abolish slavery throughout the colony. They got their independence in 1793, and on the first day, declared slavery abolished throughout the colony. The colony then sent a delegation to the French National Assembly to convince the French government to abolish slavery in the entire empire. See, they were connected to the European Empire, the British and French, who were in control. Once they took over, they sent a delegation and said, listen, we demand y'all stop this throughout the entire, they sent them there to convince the French government to abolish slavery in the entire colony. This is what happened. The National Convention declares that Negro slavery in all of the colonies is abolished. In consequence, it decrees that all men, without distinction of color, living in the colonies are French citizens and will enjoy the rights guaranteed by the Constitution the Assembly wrote. Now, this is how they say we abolish slavery. But they didn't. They were forced. Now, part of it is what? Where was their wealth coming from? From Haiti, who had taken over their country and taken their land back. The Haitians, who had a thumb on them or a foot on their neck saying, you're going to abolish it because you're getting all your goods from us. But the only part about that they didn't do, they didn't secure their bag like they should have. Because if they secured the bag, see, South Africa learned. When South Africa kicked them out, when they overthrew the white government in South Africa, they secured their bag. They said, not only are you going to get out of here, we canceling all your bank accounts, all your holdings, all your stocks and bonds. Everything you got is gone because you stole it from us. It's ours. You better find a way to get out of town, because if you don't.
Well, they had paying still, Haitians still was at one time still paying the French for the time that they was in their country. And they still owe the French a lot, but the French claim they still owe a lot of money.
And that was the issue. They didn't secure the bag because they let France convince them they owed France all this money. What I owe you for stealing from me? Wait. Let me get this right. Okay, I'm gonna come to your house. You got $1 million stashed at your house. I'm gonna come take over your house, make you work for me, and go out and make me another 10 million. Then you gonna finally rebel and tell me I got to go. I'm gonna take the 11 million I got when I come there, 10 million I had you make. I'm gonna leave, then I'm gonna convince you got to pay me another 30 million over the next 30 years. What sense that mean? Huh?
First thing, you're not gonna go in my house, and I'm not gonna owe you nothing. You gonna
Oh no, you gonna owe me.
No, you may say I owe you.
Oh, you owe me. Because I'm the government. I'm the government. I didn't establish that. But wait, no. Tell them again, Bishop.
You may put me or whatever, but I ain't getting my money.
No, they rebelled. They fought a war against him. They beat him. They kicked him out.
Okay.
But when they kicked him out, they left and said, okay, we leaving, but you still owe us all this money. And we're going to give you so many years to pay it back.
Yep.
And until you do, we're going to confiscate certain things. We're not going to pay for things that we take from your country.
Now, listen to what they did. This was France's first abolition of slavery. First, that means they had to do it again. A concession offered to retain the valuable colony. We're gonna let y'all have it. You're gonna have your freedom, but we're gonna retain control over the colony, and you owe us taxes. Because we're the government. We're gonna charge you to do right by you.
That's not no good freedom.
That's
not no good freedom.
Well, in the way that they presented it, they thought they were getting a deal.
Right.
They didn't really understand. They said, what's the first thing how do you overcome a people? You make them ignorant. Ignorant doesn't mean stupid.
I mean, you don't know.
What is the root word of ignorant?
Not knowing.
No, what is the root word? Okay, A-N-T is the suffix that means to be in the state of. What is the beginning of the word? Ignorant. What's the beginning of the word? Ignore.
Ignore.
I'm messing.
Ignore.
Ignore. Oh, y'all did miss that.
Yeah.
To be in the state of ignoring. And when you ignore, what does ignore mean? To not pay attention to what's right in front of you. They weren't dumb. They weren't paying attention. Because if you'd read the fine print, what do you mean? You're going to maintain control of the wealth? No. If we free in this our land, no. I tell you what, we going to pick the stuff and you going to pay us. We'll export it to you for a price. And after the way y'all You got to pay up front.
That's right. Let me see your money.
Huh?
Let me see you.
That makes sense?
Yeah, let me see your money.
Yeah, let me show me the money. No, I don't want no IOU because you already owe me. That's the problem. You in debt. I'm not in debt to you for freeing me. You in debt to me for enslaving me all those years.
Right.
You owe me. And that's what they did to us too.
Yeah.
They ain't paid us yet.
I want my 20 acres and a mule.
40.
40
40 acres.
40
I was, and right now, the cost, listen, the value of 40 acres and a mule then has exponentially increased
Oh, yeah.
to now.
You will never get paid.
You'll never get back. Give me Ussin's 40 acres and all the mules. In 17, look, he says, so this was France's first abolition of slavery, a concession offered to retain the valuable economy within the empire. In other words, you still belong to us, though. He said, but it wouldn't last. In 1799, now remember, this is 6 years later, because this happened in 1793. In 1799, Napoleon Bonaparte established himself as first consul of France and became determined to reign in the growing autonomy of Saint Domingue under the revolutionary leader and colonial governor Toussaint Louverture. Y'all heard of him, very famous. He published the 1801 colonial constitution that forever abolished slavery. Now, Bonaparte actually sent an army, and they sent the army to restore the colony that was then still Saint Domingue. Then his brother-in-law, Charles Leclerc, that's why most Haitians have French names. Did y'all know that? Most Haitians have French. Okay. What names do most black people have? The thing, they're not African names. We got European names.
That's right.
Yeah. Listen, wasn't no Jacksons in Africa? No Johnsons? No Petersons?
There was definitely no Elgin.
And definitely no Elgins. And I guarantee you wasn't no Davis. So they did what? They got their names. The Haitians have French names. Y'all don't know they're my cousins. They all come from Africa, from the same places we come from. They have French. How does all these Africans who are spread out all over the world, okay, South Americans, they have Spanish names. Puerto Ricans have Spanish names. Go to the Caribbean. Okay. I know y'all.
Teach.
Whoever was in charge, them the names you got. And this is why many of us don't even know what our real last name is. I bet you it wasn't no Millikins in Africa. Yes.
Spanish first name, Creole second name, and Ireland.
See? And an Irish last name.
Yeah. So, I'm all the above.
You all of the above. See? Spanish, Creole, and Irish. But she black as she can be.
Little Indian in there somewhere too.
Yeah, and some Indian. Yeah, but these are the kinds of things. Now, that is what really is being in the state of ignorance. Because we're ignoring some real, they make them subtle facts, but if we really examine them, those facts are speaking out loud. It's speaking out loud. When God told Israel, if you don't act right, I'm going to send you back to Egypt on ships. And told them what was going to happen, where they were going to go. And Egypt was a metaphor. It wasn't a physical place. It's the place of misery and bondage. and you weren't going to be able to buy your freedom. And so, and where did we get scattered? To the Caribbean, to Europe, Haiti, all those islands, South America, North America, and the Hawaiian Islands.
Mhm.
All the places, that's where we ended up. From all the same location. Okay? But we all got different last names. How we get Polynesian last names?
Whoever your master was, he named it.
Whoever your master was. There you go. And so the war was called the War of Extermination. And the war was to deport L'Ouverture, and that was the brother-in-law, Charles Leclerc. And there's some Leclerc that's in Haiti right now. I got a daughter married one. That's her last name. Here's my opinion, he says, on this country. Leclerc wrote in a letter to Bonaparte on October 7, 1802. We must destroy all of the black people in the mountains, men and women, and spare only children under 12 years of age. We must destroy half of those in the plains and must not leave a single person of color in the colony who has worn an epaulet. Now, let me pull that up, tell y'all what an epaulet is. It is an ornamental shoulder piece on their uniforms that they wore to identify they were part of the Haitian army. So anyone anyone old enough to hold a gun, age 12 and up, were part of their army. That's why they said we got to kill everything over the age of 12 and anything that has worn an epaulet. And so the first French of abolition ended quickly. Bonaparte's return to colonial order included slavery, and in 1802, he reinstated slavery in France's other Caribbean colonies. See, how our people call it, they were bad. Now, that was another part. They could take a group of them folks and come in with guns, and they would take over the entire population of people. They had more people, but they had a firepower. And plus the fact, even if they say, well, listen, if we bum rush them, a few of us going to get killed, but we're going to survive. And everybody will say, yeah, but who want to die first? Kind of, catch 22.
Self-preservation.
Self-preservation. Wow. Then on January 1, 1804, there was a year later, the slogan was called Freedom or Death. Somebody finally got the idea of what I just said. Jean-Jacques Dessalines led the Revolutionary Army to victory on January 1, 1804. That was the total of the 13 years. 1791 to 1804 is the 13-year war. They had it abolished. Then the French reneged. Then they won again on January 1. And Dessalines declared the Haitian independence, promising Haitians would never and forever ensure the empire of liberty in the country that gave them birth. He said, we must cease from the inhuman government that has for a long time kept us in the most humiliating torpor. All hope of re-enslaving us, we must then live independent or die. Now, that's funny when you say enough is enough.
Right.
As Popeye says, that's all I can stand.
Can't
I can't stand no
no
more. To die
Yeah.
is more acceptable than to live like this. Now let me turn that around. Some folks got to take that attitude about salvation.
Right.
To die to Christ It's more acceptable than to live like this for the devil. He says to them, we must live independent or die. So from the first day of his existence, Haiti banned slavery. It is the first country to do so. And the next year, it published its first constitution. And here is Article 2 of the Constitution. It stated, slavery is abolished forever. That's Article 2. Slavery is forever abolished. That's Article 2. We don't need to give no more explanation.
Right.
We don't have to elaborate on it. So they banned slavery, and they banned it in its entirety. They also abolished the slave trade. Unlike the two-step approach of the European nations and the United States, they act like they had abolished it. But remember when I gave the report on this first ship and the first two that landed in Virginia, they were actually carrying those slaves illegally because Europe had so-called banned the transportation and sale of slaves, but they bought them and they sold them from two ships under European ownership, and they had a license from the French and the Dutch until somebody got in trouble, and the reason the second ship dropped off the 4 or 5 it had left, or 7 and took off because they were supposedly coming to arrest them. How you gonna come to arrest them though? But somebody gave a heads up that they about to get arrested.
Right.
Drop them and hightail out there. We're gonna give you some supplies along the way.
That's how they do it.
And now, isn't there something wrong with that picture?
Something wrong with that somewhere.
Now that's some ignorance there. An initiation of revolutionaries in Saint Dominique, France, had abolished slavery, but it swiftly reinstituted and restarted the slave trade in 1802. Now, they stopped it in Haiti, but restarted the slave trade the same year. In 1802, 1804, Haiti gets its total independence. Now watch this. The British, many of whom tout their leading role in abolition. I gotta read that again. The British, many of whom tout their leading role. What leading role? In abolition, abolished the slave trade in 1807, but only passed the Abolition Act in 1833. Wait. And the story ain't over. And continued enslaving people in the Caribbean until 1838. And even then, the Abolition Act was similarly spurred on by a major rebellion in Jamaica in 1831 and 1832. I'm not going to read the rest of it. Simply put it this way. They lied.
Yep.
Straight up.
They lied. Discover some stuff you didn't know. Did you know? Now, here's something though we still know. They lied then, and they still lie
You're
now.
lying now. We know that.
They lied then, they still lie now. And here is the facts. The fact is, who you gonna believe? Well, whose report will you believe? Simple fact is, we have to really understand it is the grace of God that has blessed us to even have what we have.
Yeah, right.
Because if they had it their way, we would still be oppressed, suppressed, depressed, and distressed.
And broke.
But thanks be to God, who loved us enough to look out for us, has kept us, and has kept us free. And I think we ought to give God some praise and glory for what he's done for us.
Amen.
Because if it wasn't for God, we'd still be fighting. God loves you and I love you. And I think what you can do about it. All right, listen.
Amen.
I said if my grandson wanted to fix the chapel, he's like a lot of people that's not patient. So he has no internet connection, so I was gonna log him into the internet, but he could wait till he logged in, so he took the tablet off. Thinking it was ready. It's like a lot of us are just, we think things are right,
It
before
ain't
we
right.
get it right.
It ain't right.
Yeah, but you're trying to get it right, but we run off before we get it right.
Mhm.
So he's back there still trying to play with the figure, think it's gonna come on, but eventually he's gonna realize it's not gonna come on.
It ain't coming.
But he said bring out some things that we didn't know. You know what, we never talked about Italy, Rome.
Oh, yeah.
Rome had a big factor in that also. And Rome was supposed to be the place of religion. But religion was supposed to have the first thrive. But Rome, Italy, the country, Italy itself had a lot to do with the things that were going on in that time period. Because the church was dictating not only to Italy, but to France and to England, was also dictating what goes on. Because the church in Rome dictated what was on in Europe. And they're still doing it today. Because, you know, the Vatican is considered its own country.
Yep.
So we have to look at what's going on. But, you know, one thing about this, though, is that we look at France and the connection France has with the United States. But do you know in World War I, who helped the French government was black pilots. These men weren't allowed to fight with the United States, and definitely they were too ignorant to fly planes for the United States. But France, knowing because of the Haitian War, because of what they did to France, what the black people did to France in that Haitian War, they learned that black people are smart.
Better get them. They'll help us.
We need to get somebody that can help us. So what they did is they went and they recruited black people from the United States to come to France and help them fight a war. And you notice France, of all the European countries that was overtaken by Germany, France wasn't.
No. Because of the black soul.
Because of the black people that were there fighting with them. So we have a history.
And then America jumped in to try to take credit that it was them.
That's it. But they still thought we were too stupid to pick up a gun.
Yeah.
Until they started bringing all these white boys home in bags. So then they started switching the script. And they started sending us out front. And we came to find out as many of us weren't coming back in bags back then.
And what is the only airborne squadron to never lose a bomber escort in the history of air warfare? The Tuskegee Airmen, who were all black pilots.
So we have a history that goes back, but we have a tendency of only going back so far. And when we talk about the airmen and what they went through to get to it, but there was airmen before them.
For them. Yeah.
And then the accomplishments of those black men before them, we never talk about.
Yeah. Because they don't tell you.
Because they don't want us to know. But these black men did over in France. That allowed them to make them start thinking twice about opening a school for black airmen and air pilots in this country. It was because of those men in France that made them do it in the United States.
Yep.
But they taken this and put it on the president at the time, and his wife said that they was the reason, and that wasn't the reason.
You sure was.
But they don't want us to know it.
Yep.
So it's good to talk about this, Sister Joyce. I had to Bob a little more. I took one of those eye drops that you don't agree with me.
Uh-oh.
It caused my eye to ache.
Yeah. Gotta put them on time.
I take it on time. It's just that one of them makes my eye ache.
You gotta put them in there.
Ache.
Gotta put them down in there.
So, but I think that we're going to conclude our Sunday school at 11 o'clock. And we would pick it up, we would take a 5-10 minute break, and we would pick up our morning service. Father, in Jesus' name, we thank you, Lord, for these words that went forth today, Father. We thank you for opening our eyes to our people, Father, that they may see that your word goes forth, Father. We thank you for all the things that were said and done this morning, Father. Bless the Sunday school. We bless each and every one that had ears to hear. Father, bless us go forth. Bless those who may watch later. Give them ears to hear and an understanding heart and mind. Keep us together. This day forward, bless this offering. Let it be used to glorify and uplift your name. Keep us together. This forward in Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
And we'll be back 11:15 for our morning worship on air. I'm signing off. Okay.
Sister Arlen,
That it's not going to work till I log in to the until I log in. Come here, boy. Bring that thing here.
he's playing solitaire. He's
Oh, he's
playing
playing
solitaire, yeah.
Where you go?
I turned this one on so I can log it in. It popped up on the tablet, and I was ready to take the back off and get the code.
And he took it
So
away.
take it off with it.
Tell him if you can't be patient, then don't complain to him about not getting on.
All right. You want to
You
play
let him sign it up or go sit down.
something? You want to play
Hey.
something? You want to just-
Hi, Miss Nina. How you doing? Good. Good to see you today. Lovely as always. You're welcome. Are you keeping them in order? Keeping them straight?
You don't want me to put more on this?
I thought you might just try.
Okay, well, I'm not gonna worry about it. Just go somewhere. I'm not gonna worry about it.
Oh, y'all pregnant Carla, cause,
What's up?
she not keeping
Come on, give me in and put your this down.
She's not.
All right.
Oh.
Let me let me tie your shoes.
Oh, no.
Come here, boy.
No matter what you do, whatever.
Come here. I'm a pop.
Mommy said she had it, but I don't know if she didn't need it. She just trying to eat something. She wind up throwing it up. Said last night they was up hanging her living on the bed.
What? Leave that alone. Come here. Come here. What I told you.
Nina, listen what I said.
Huh?
You know that.
What I told you about that. I'm not smiling. I'm not laughing. You take this tablet. Give it.
Till we get
You
started.
don't tell me nothing. Huh? Uh-huh. You do? No, you don't. I'll keep this to you. What? No what? Do what? Look, you don't look. Come on, look at me. Look at me. Look at me. Give me this. Give it to me. Give it to me.
Had a party for her friends. high school. Then
Give it
that's
to them.
why they
Huh?
did it up. My mom said, "See, I seen the picture." She didn't have no shoes on. She was barefooted. I said, "Oh, this the picture."
What's up,
And she was talking about. I said, she got on glass shoes. Yeah. I can see it. I said, Mama, I was there. She got on shoes.
Straighten your face up.
Yeah.
Who take the plane with?
Just like them one or two them friends.
Huh?
Dayla, you gotta come out of there now.
Who you take the plane with?
There you go. Yeah,
No, you're not playing.
holding up traffic, brother. Something else.
You don't walk around telling me what you're doing. Huh?
No, oh, what's the age?
Straighten your face up. Straighten up. Straighten your face up.
You're pregnant.
That worked that way.
I know you gonna throw
Straighten
up.
your face up.
Yeah. It worked that way.
You take the plane with.
Yeah, she a F.
Say no. Okay?
That's
What?
daughter.
Huh?
Oh, yeah, look at her.
She tall.
She
She
was
went
Jack.
You?
And Layla, oh, we're talking about no. Layla.
You hear me now?
You're right. I always call this reminds me like my granddaughter.
You don't hear me?
That's not her.
Layla not in here.
Explain your butt to me.
That's not her.
No, that's Lisa's daughter. That's Nana. That's my other daughter's daughter. She'll be 16 in May.
Okay, this is Charlotte's daughter.
Yeah,
You said I was someplace.
and that's G's daughter.
Yeah.
Layla was probably somewhere on the street. I don't know who you talking
Yeah.
about. And when she walked in, I'm like, and all I could see was that. Who is that? Yeah, that's young. Yeah.
Oh, my, the little Joy. Now, who is this one?
That's Sister, Sister. That's Mrs. Nikki Godmother, who's in her backyard in her
Go
house.
listen.
And that's
Go
some
over
of her
there.
great. I grew up with her kids.
Wait, listen. Go.
So, that's one of the girls from high school.
What they doing here? There.
Yeah, probably so, because they had music going. Oh, there goes Layla right there. All that hair. The one that
I'm
can
saying,
sing.
yeah,
That's
that's
the
her.
one that can sing.
Yeah, she looks like my own
I got
granddaughter.
that.
They're probably just going there.
Okay.
Nina, you ready? Come on.
Oh, and then, this right here, that's the man, my kid.